Detective Mark Renshaw's breath hitched as the words on the typewriter solidified before him. "Look behind you." A wave of cold dread washed over him, but years of experience kept him from turning immediately. Instead, he reached for his holster, slowly drawing his sidearm. The cabin, once silent except for the occasional rustling of the wind outside, felt like it was holding its breath. Then, another keystroke. Clack. Renshaw spun around, gun raised, only to find the room exactly as it was before. Empty. Except for the typewriter. Except for the note that had materialized on its own. He exhaled sharply, lowering his weapon, and stepped cautiously toward the typewriter. The ink was still drying on the page. He traced the words with his fingers, trying to rationalize what had just happened. His radio crackled. "Detective." It was Officer Ramirez back at the station. "You need to get back here. Now." Renshaw took one last glance at the typewriter before shoving the note into his coat pocket. He didn't know what he was dealing with yet. But whatever it wasn't finished. Back at the station, Claire Carter was pacing in the waiting area, gripping something tightly in her hands. Her hazel eyes locked onto Renshaw the moment he entered. Without a word, she thrust a small, worn notebook at him. "I found this in Ethan's cabin," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It wasn't there before." Renshaw opened the notebook, flipping through pages filled with Ethan's frantic handwriting. One passage stood out. "The typewriter isn't writing what I tell it to. It knows things I haven't written yet. It's not just a tool. It's an author. And I think it's been writing my story for longer than I've known." He snapped the book shut. "Where exactly did you find this?" Claire hesitated. "In his desk drawer. But I swear I checked that drawer before. It was empty." Ramirez interrupted them, his face pale. "Sir, we just got another note." Renshaw followed him to the evidence room. Another sheet of paper lay inside an evidence bag. The words were neatly typed, unmistakable in their foreboding tone. "You are running out of time." That night, Renshaw and Claire returned to the rundown motel. Room 6 was still sealed off with police tape, but something compelled Renshaw to step inside once more. The air was thick, humid. The TV, though unplugged, flickered with faint static. And then, in the far corner of the room, the frail, elderly man from before sat with his hands clasped again, as if he had never left. "You didn't listen," the old man rasped. "You let the pages keep turning." Renshaw's pulse pounded. "Who are you?" The man's lips parted, but before he could speak, the lights flickered violently. The room groaned, like the walls were shifting. Then, without warning, the old man let out a strangled gasp and vanished into thin air. Claire screamed. Renshaw stumbled back, gripping the doorframe for support. The typewriter, the notes, the disappearances. Whatever force was behind this, it was watching them. And it wasn't done. The next morning, a package was left at the station, addressed to Renshaw. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed on the same Smith Corona typewriter. "The story is almost over. Only one chapter remains." And beneath it, written in ink, was something far more chilling. Ethan Carter's signature. Detective Mark Renshaw stared at the package's contents, his pulse pounding in his ears. Ethan Carter's signature was unmistakable, but that wasn't possible. Unless Ethan was alive, or something was using his name. The station was silent, save for the distant hum of a flickering light. Renshaw ran a hand over his face, forcing himself to focus. He turned to Officer Ramirez. "Where did this come from?" "No idea," Ramirez said. "The morning shift found it outside the front door. No cameras picked up who left it." Claire Carter stepped forward, her voice tense. "We need to open it." Renshaw hesitated, then carefully lifted the paper, checking for any hidden details. But the message was clear. "The story is almost over. Only one chapter remains." "Then we finish it," he murmured. Determined to find answers, Renshaw and Claire retraced Ethan's last known steps. They returned to the Fairview Library, where Ethan had been seen researching old newspapers. But this time, They weren't looking at the 1975 disappearance of Gregory Whitman. They needed to go further back. The librarian, a frail woman named Margaret, led them to the archives. "No one's checked these in years," she said, dusting off the folders. Flipping through pages of brittle newsprint, Renshaw's breath caught when he found it. An article dated October 12, 1931. Another disappearance. Another writer. Another Smith Corona typewriter found in an abandoned cabin. And a name they hadn't seen before. Ellis Hawthorne, age 36, vanished from Fairview, Montana. Last seen leaving his home, speaking of finishing a chapter that wasn't his to write. Claire pointed at the faded black and white photograph beside the article. "That's the same look. The same stare Ethan had at the gas station." Renshaw exhaled sharply. The disappearances weren't just repeating every 44 years. They had been happening for nearly a century. That night, unable to shake the feeling that something was watching him, Renshaw sat alone in his car, parked outside Ethan's cabin. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the eerie stillness of a town holding its breath. Then headlights. A black sedan rolled up slowly, stopping just short of his car. The engine idled, humming softly in the night air. Renshaw's fingers tightened around the grip of his gun. His instincts screamed at him to move, to run. But he stayed frozen, transfixed. The driver's side door creaked open. A man stepped out, his face hidden beneath the brim of a wide-brimmed hat. He moved with an unnatural stillness, his long coat billowing despite the absence of wind. And then, he raised his hand, not in a threat, but in a silent beckoning. The air around Renshaw crackled. His vision blurred, the edges of reality warping like the distortion on an old television screen. Then, in the distance, the unmistakable sound of keystrokes. Clack, clack, clack. The story was writing itself, and Renshaw was part of it. The next morning, the Fairview police station was eerily quiet. Ramirez knocked on Renshaw's office door. No answer. When he pushed it open, the detective's desk was immaculate, cleared of all papers, all files. The only thing left was a single sheet of paper, neatly placed in the center. Typed in bold letters, "The story is finished." There was no sign of Renshaw, no evidence he had ever left the room. And on the desk, resting beside the note, sat an old, dust-covered Smith Corona typewriter. The last chapter had been written, or had it? For more chilling true crime content, subscribe to this channel.